Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Jack Abbott had faced a lifetime of battles, corporate wars, heartbreaks, betrayals that had broken him apart and rebuilt him again, but nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for the sight that met his eyes when he barreled into the abandoned lakeside cabin, the one he had prayed he wasn't too late to reach. Flames roared around him like a living beast, devouring the walls with vicious hunger, spewing sparks that showered down like fiery rain. The air was thick, choking, impossible to breathe without burning the lungs, but Jack didn't stop. He couldn't. Because through that suffocating orange haze, he saw her, Nikki Newman, slumped against the collapsed beam, barely conscious, the fire creeping toward her like a serpent closing in on its prey. And farther behind her, sprawled face down on the floorboards, was Matt Clark, unconscious, unmoving, the fire licking at the hem of his jacket. For a split second, Jack froze. This was the nightmare no one expected, Nikki trapped in the blaze Matt had set, and Matt, the man who had tormented so many, the man whose grudge had ignited this inferno, now helpless in the very flames he thought he controlled. But Jack didn't hesitate. His heart slamming against his ribs, he lunged toward Nikki, shouting through the roar of the fire, "Nikki! Nikki, can you hear me? Stay with me. I'm here. I've got you." She tried to lift her head, her voice a faint whisper lost in the chaos, but her strength failed her. Jack dropped to his knees, ignoring the searing heat burning through his clothes as he wrapped his arms around her shoulders. He could feel her trembling, her skin cold despite the blazing inferno. "Come on, Nikki," he muttered, his voice cracking with desperation, "I am not losing you tonight. Not like this." A beam cracked above him, showering sparks, forcing Jack to shield Nikki with his own body. He had seconds, maybe less. With every ounce of power left in him, he pulled Nikki up, staggering as he lifted her into his arms. She let out a weak moan, her head dropping against his chest. "It's okay," Jack promised her, even though his throat was raw, even though he wasn't sure they'd make it out alive. "I've got you. I'm getting you out." He took one step, then another, moving through the flames, his vision blurring from smoke and sweat. But then a loud, sickening crack shattered through the cabin. Jack whipped his head around. The support beam above Matt had split, flames chewing through it like a rabid monster preparing to pounce. Matt was still unconscious. Still not moving. And Jack, carrying Nikki, was seconds from the structure collapsing entirely. The moral dilemma hit him like a punch to the chest: save the woman he loved, who had trusted him, leaned on him, needed him, or try to go back for the man who had caused all of this, who had hunted Nikki with a vengeance and now lay helpless on the scorched floorboards. Another burst of flame exploded behind him. Nikki whimpered. Jack felt her slipping away, her body growing limp. That was all it took. His choice was instant, inevitable. "I'm sorry, Matt," he whispered, voice full of grim finality. "I can't lose her." And with that, Jack charged toward the door. The smoke thickened, turning the cabin into a tomb of swirling black and orange. Jack could barely see the exit anymore. His lungs burned, his legs shook, and Nikki's weight grew heavier with every step as she drifted further out of consciousness. "Nikki, stay awake," Jack begged her, choking and coughing as he stumbled. "Don't you dare give up on me. Not now." A gust of wind blasted through the broken window, sending a tornado of fire spiraling toward the doorway. Jack clenched his jaw, shielding Nikki with his body as he forced himself through the flames. His hair singed, his clothes smoldered, but he didn't stop, not until he finally burst out the door and into the cold night air. He fell to his knees in the dirt, Nikki still in his arms as he gasped for breath, tears streaming from the burn of smoke and from sheer overwhelming relief. Alarms and sirens wailed in the distance, fire trucks racing down the road toward them, but Jack couldn't hear anything except Nikki's faint, fragile breaths. "Nikki! Nikki, look at me," he pleaded, gently tapping her cheek as he cradled her. Her eyelids fluttered, barely opening. "Jack," she whispered, her voice cracked and broken. And those two syllables nearly brought Jack to tears. "Yeah," he breathed, smiling despite the agony. "I'm right here. You're safe now. I've got you." But behind them, the cabin was no longer a cabin at all, just a wall of fire, swallowing everything inside. The flames shot into the sky like a screaming orange monster, and through the cracks in the collapsing roof, Jack could still see the silhouette of Matt's unmoving body. Unconscious. Trapped. The blaze closing in. Nikki forced her eyes open again, just enough to see the inferno. Her breath hitched. "Matt," she whispered. Jack shook his head, guilt flickering across his face. "I tried, but I couldn't risk losing you." A tear slid down Nikki's cheek, not for Matt, not for the man who had terrorized her, but because she knew Jack had just made the most agonizing decision of his life. And still, he had chosen her. The fire department screeched to a halt, firefighters rushing to deploy hoses, barking orders as they moved. Jack refused to let Nikki go until paramedics gently pried her from his arms, lowering her onto a stretcher. She reached for Jack's hand, gripping it with what little strength she had left. "You saved me," she breathed. "You saved my life." Jack brushed soot from her forehead, his voice trembling. "I'll always save you, Nikki." As the paramedics checked her oxygen and the firefighters swarmed the blaze, Jack stood there, shaking, burned, exhausted, as the inferno devoured the cabin and everything inside it. The roof collapsed completely, sending a massive plume of flames into the air. A firefighter shouted, "We've got an additional body inside." "Unconscious male." Jack's entire body stiffened. They were going in after Matt. The man he had left behind. The man burning inside. The guilt hit him like a punch, but he didn't move toward the fire. He couldn't. He had made his choice. And if he had to make it again, he would. Nikki, strapped to the stretcher, looked over at Jack with wide, trembling eyes. He leaned over her, cupping her cheek with one soot-covered hand. "Stay with me," he whispered again, not a command this time, but a plea straight from his soul. Because in that moment, nothing mattered except the fact that she was alive. Alive because of him. And behind them, the flames continued to rage, swallowing Matt Clark's unconscious form as the firefighters rushed inside, too late or maybe just in time, but whatever happened next, one truth was undeniable: Jack Abbott emerged from that fire a hero. The man who dragged Nikki from the jaws of death. The man who chose love over vengeance. The man who walked through the fire, and survived. The night air crackled with tension as firefighters stormed the burning cabin, their silhouettes swallowed by the flickering orange waves. Jack stood frozen in place, his entire body trembling from adrenaline, smoke inhalation, and the emotional weight of the decision he had just made. His heart thundered in his chest as every memory of Nikki, every shared look, every fragile moment in their tangled history, collided with the horrifying image of her lying helpless inside that inferno. He had chosen her. He had chosen life. But as he watched firefighters disappear into the collapsing structure, a knot of guilt tightened inside him like a vice. The screaming crack of burning wood, the hiss of flames fighting the water jets, it all blurred together into a cacophony that echoed in Jack's ears like the roar of his own conscience. He felt the world spinning around him, but he kept his eyes fixed on Nikki, who lay on the stretcher, oxygen mask pressed to her face as paramedics monitored her vitals. Her pale fingers twitched, reaching in his direction even in her weakened state. That small gesture, so simple, so instinctive, pulled him back from the edge of panic. He moved toward her, every step shaky but determined, and lowered himself beside her just as her eyelids struggled to lift. "Jack," she whispered, her voice raspy. He instantly grabbed her hand, swallowing the ache that burned through him. "I'm right here, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice raw. "You're safe now. You hear me? You're safe." But Nikki's attention drifted past him, back toward the raging fire. Her breathing hitched. "Matt, what if—" "No," Jack cut in firmly, too firmly. "Don't you worry about Matt. Not right now." Her eyes flickered with conflicted fear, not for Matt as a person but for the chaos this would unleash. Victor. Nick. The entire Newman family. A man dead, or near death, in a fire connected to Nikki? Connected to Jack? Genoa City was about to explode. But Jack wouldn't let that fear touch her. Not tonight. Not when she was barely clinging to consciousness. The firefighters emerged suddenly, coughing, carrying a limp, soot-covered body. Matt's body. Jack's breath caught in his throat, not from sympathy, not from grief, but from the horrifying realization that this wasn't over. Unconscious male, no visible movement, one firefighter barked as paramedics rushed forward. Breathing shallow. Pulse faint. Jack's stomach twisted. Matt was alive. Alive, after everything, the fire, the smoke, the collapsing roof. The man who had terrorized Nikki, tormented her, stalked her, manipulated her fears, orchestrated this entire nightmare, lived. Nikki's eyes widened, tears pooling despite the rawness of her lungs. Jack, she gasped. He squeezed her hand tighter. Don't look. Focus on me. Just me. But she couldn't help it. She was haunted by a truth she didn't want to admit. Matt surviving meant this nightmare wasn't over. It meant questions, danger, accusations. It meant Matt would wake up eventually, and talk. The paramedics loaded Matt into a second ambulance, his body limp, oxygen mask strapped to his soot-blackened face. The firefighter captain approached Jack, wiping sweat and ash from his brow. He's lucky, the captain grunted. Any later and we'd be pulling out a corpse. Jack stiffened. His voice lowered into something dark, conflicted. Depends on your definition of lucky. The captain gave him a strange look but didn't push. He wasn't paid to understand the tangled relationships of Genoa City. He was paid to put out fires, literal ones. But this fire? The emotional one? The social one? The Newman Abbott one? This was about to burn hotter than anything his hoses could put out. The paramedics prepared Nikki for transport, lifting her stretcher carefully. Jack followed, refusing to be more than an arm's length away. Sir, one medic said gently, you look like you've inhaled a lot of smoke. You should let us check you. I'm staying with Nikki, Jack snapped, surprising even himself with the sharpness. Nikki squeezed his hand weakly, trying to calm him. Jack, it's okay, they can, I'm not leaving you, he said, voice softening but still shaking. Not for a second. The ambulance doors shut, sealing them inside amid the hum of machines and the flashing lights painting the night in red and blue. Nikki's breath rattled, but her fingers never let go of his. As the ambulance sped toward the hospital, sirens screaming through the darkness, Jack leaned close, brushing a strand of soot-streaked hair from her forehead. Nikki, listen to me, he said quietly. I know you're scared. I know this is a nightmare. But I promise you, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And nobody, is going to hurt you again. Her lips parted slightly, her voice barely audible. You saved me. I thought I was going to die in there. Jack blinked hard, fighting back the emotion swelling in his chest. Not on my watch, he whispered. Never. As they sped through the night, memories crashed into him, every moment he'd shared with Nikki over the decades, every fight, every reunion, every heartbreak that somehow always circled back to this unbreakable pull between them. He realized something with stunning clarity, he had risked everything for her tonight without hesitation. That meant something. Something huge. Something terrifying. But there was no time to unpack it. Not when the ambulance jerked to a stop in front of Memorial Hospital and a frenzy of doctors rushed forward. They wheeled Nikki toward the ER, Jack trailing behind them like a shadow. Sir, you can't go in, a nurse blocked him at the doors. Jack's voice cracked with desperation. She needs me. We need to stabilize her first, the nurse said firmly. Please wait in the hall. The door swung shut before Jack could respond. He stood alone, chest heaving, the smell of smoke still clinging to his skin like a curse. He paced back and forth, running a shaking hand through his hair. Every second felt like an hour. Every minute a lifetime. And then, because chaos always arrives in clusters, someone shouted his name. Jack turned. And there he was. Victor Newman. Storming down the hallway with fury in his eyes and security guards scrambling behind him. Jack. Victor roared, his voice echoing off the tiles. Where is she? What the hell happened? Jack braced himself. Victor, don't you Victor me. Victor snapped, jabbing a finger at him. I got a call saying Nikki was trapped in a fire, and you were there? What the hell were you doing with my wife? Jack set his jaw, refusing to back down. Saving her. Victor froze. Just for a second. Just enough for Jack to continue. If I hadn't gotten there when I did, she'd be dead. I pulled her out of that inferno with my own hands. Victor's expression shifted, fear flashed behind the rage. A father, a husband, a man facing the possibility of losing the woman he had loved longer than he'd loved anyone. Is she? He asked, voice suddenly fragile. Jack softened. Not because he felt Victor deserved it, but because Nikki did. She's alive. Smoke inhalation. Weak. But alive. Victor exhaled shakily, looking away as he swallowed emotion. But the moment of vulnerability didn't last. His eyes snapped back to Jack. And Matt? Jack hesitated. Unconscious. Badly burned. They brought him in too. Victor's face darkened into something almost monstrous. Good. Maybe now this nightmare ends. But as if summoned by Victor's fury, nurses rushed another stretcher down the hallway. Matt Clark, barely recognizable, his face blistered, his hair singed, his body limp beneath the oxygen lines and bandages. Victor followed them with his eyes, rage hardening his jaw. He should have stayed in that fire, Victor growled. Jack didn't respond. Because deep down, he agreed. But Nikki. Nikki wouldn't want to hear that. Not now. Not from him. Not when she was fighting to breathe. The ER door swung open again. A doctor stepped out. Both Victor and Jack rushed forward. How is she? They said in unison. The doctor hesitated, caught between two powerful men ready to explode. She's stable, the doctor said finally. Jack felt his whole body sag in relief. Victor closed his eyes, exhaling deeply. But, the doctor added, she's extremely weak. She needs rest. She's asking for Jack. Victor's head snapped around so fast Jack thought he might crack something. She what? Jack almost apologized. Almost. But the truth landed with the force of a bomb. Nikki wanted him. Needed him. Not Victor. Not tonight. The doctor continued, oblivious to the emotional storm brewing. She said, and I quote, please, let Jack in. So, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Newman, I need to allow the patient's request. Victor looked like a man swallowing poison. Jack, without waiting for permission, walked past him toward Nikki's room. Inside, she was propped slightly upright, oxygen mask in place, her skin pale but her eyes brighter than they had been an hour ago. Jack, she whispered as he entered. He came to her side instantly, taking her hand gently. I'm here. A tear slipped down her cheek. You saved my life. Jack brushed her cheek with shaking fingers. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. She squeezed his hand, her voice trembling. I thought I was dying. And in those last moments, all I could think about was you. Jack felt the room tilt, his breath catching. Nikki, but then her expression shifted, darkened, fear clouding her eyes. Jack, when Matt wakes up, he's going to blame me. Twist everything. He'll say I set him up. He'll say you tried to kill him. Jack leaned forward, cupping her face. Hey. Look at me. She did. No one, not Matt, not Victor, not anyone, is going to hurt you. I don't care what it takes, I will protect you. You're safe now. Do you understand? Nikki nodded slowly, tears falling again. But outside her room, Matt was being revived. And the moment he opened his eyes, everything was about to explode. Jack wasn't just Nikki's hero anymore. He was the man standing between her and a vengeful survivor who wanted her dead. And Genoa City was about to burn all over again. Matt Clark's hospital room glowed with the cold, sterile harshness of fluorescent lights, nothing like the flames that had swallowed him just an hour earlier, yet somehow just as unforgiving. His